Hi, everyone. Um, so for once you just joined, I'm Katie. I'm a cultural strategist. I have about 13 years experience in fashion, strategy at Carla Auto, Covetor, Amazon Entertainment. And I'm super excited to speak to panelists today about storytelling. So we have three extremely different types of narratives. And I am going to allow each of you to introduce yourselves because I do not want to miss one single thing.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Damar English. I'm a metaverse designer and strategist. My practice focuses a lot in the notion of intersectional digitization, which is basically making sense of my own identity as an African, Black, and queer woman in the metaverse and in the diaspora. I really see the metaverse as sort of the extension of our social interactions. And I see it as a great opportunity of archiving traditions, reinventing rituals, and expanding human connections. And yes, I'm really excited to be here today sharing the stage with these amazing creatives.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gianluca, originally from Palermo, Sicily. I've been living the last 10 years around between Berlin and Lisbon, and I've always worked for the last 9 years in deep tech, in a startup Web3, and the last 5 years I started working with creators here in Lisbon. So we started organizing digital art exhibition and working with generative artists. And that is where I realized that there's actually some new interesting model for creators and artists to promote and display their art. So I founded the Muro, which is a digital art streaming platform. So we pretty much make digital art accessible. We show it to commercial venues like hotels, spa, corporate office, co-working spaces, and we pay back creators for every minute that their art is being displayed.
Hi, everybody. I don't know. Is it good? Okay. I'm Leonel, and I go in the digital space as Glitch of Mine. I'm a 3D artist and editorial digital fashion designer. My work focus a little bit on the exploration of heritage through storytelling and editorial imagery, which is a little bit now I started to explore, but it was a little bit how we can use digital fashion to tell story through editorial imagery, fantasy, and basically an exploration of my own heritage, my past, my experiences, and I recreate them into fantasies. And now I am founder of the Interlore, which is an upcoming digital fashion house, which will focus on the exploration of nature-based materials and fabrics to create a little bit of like an avant-garde couture design and storytelling that focus and educating into all these new materials, and especially mycelium, that is an up-and-coming material that it can help towards a little bit like, the pollution that we create through fashion. So yeah, that's me.
Wait, so can you expand on that? You're using different natural materials mixed with Web3 technology?
Yes, of course. Like one of the plans that I have for this brand, like as of right now, I'm creating what it is like storytelling where this character that I created, that they reinvent fashion through these materials. So what I do is I take the data, put it through AI, create the material, and then I convert this into 3D maps that I apply then to the garments. And in that way, for example, with the technology of Web3 and the blockchain technology, you can record all the data of all the material that you are utilizing for these products. So that's a way that I'm planning to apply these different products and nature-based material to try to create like also an educative, interactive kind of like for you to know from where this material come, what type of mushroom it was used for, what type of leather, in terms of the mycelium, because you can create that huge diverse type of materials with the mycelium and nature-based in general products. But my main focus is I'm fascinated by mycelium. So that's like my main exploration in regard to the clothing that I create.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for all those introductions. It's incredible what you guys are doing. Such pioneers in the space. Yeah, as the metaverse is a fertile space, with new forms of digital creativity, which used to be expanding daily, by creating various forms of digital art, fashion creativity could possibly permanently shift this new type of medium of storytelling, like we've seen with live streams, social media, and other forms of digital art, which are now part of the fashion firmament. We've been seeing full looks on runways, expansive worlds, and campaigns imagery designed using prompts, essentially allowing anyone to become a creative director if they can create a prompt. But will the future of design process involve this? And I just have one general question, and you could answer if you feel like you want to, or skip to the next one. But I would, as three very different innovators here today, I would love to hear how you incorporate storytelling and digital innovation into your design process. Any takers?
Okay, so I can go and then we can. Yes. So for me, for example, when it comes to storytelling, for me, the more important aspect when I'm creating a design, when I'm creating a story regard to the character, the type of fashion, I love to explore first like the story of the character, like why this character is wearing this. So that's a way that I can create like a sort of like a connection between the fashion and the story. And then I create a narrative around it, and that's how I come up with certain type of collections. For example, the last one that I created, I dropped it with Psyche, and it was in Miami in Art Basel. And that one, I made the focus on creating this character that it was this humanoid who was asleep through a whole destruction of the planet. You know, we are getting there somehow. And then they wake up connected by nature, and in that way they were able to create this type of design of clothing and try to educate the remaining human that were left in a way of like a holistic way to how to connect with the earth and connect with the type of clothing that you're wearing, the design and everything. Even though my fascination, I'm like really fascinated by Victorian design and clothing, the volume, the big sleeve, the drama. I love all that. Like that's my thing. And I find something very fascinating about the Victorian era in terms of the clothing, for example, was so constricted to your body that you basically feel like you have to maintain a certain pose, a certain story, to your emotions inwards. So that's how I try to utilize those symbolisms in the clothing, and how do I project them with a little bit of touch of also Afro-surrealism, which is a little bit my background, and how I create, mainly because it's inspired my entire experience, right? So I just recreate that into a fantasy, the things that I love. So that's how, sorry if I, oh.
Not at all. I'd love to hear your intake.
Yeah, just to sort of jump from that, I love this idea of how silhouettes sort of design a posture, and how posture can make you think and act in different ways as well. So it's amazing to look at the way that fashion in itself is a technology. Things that you wear are a technology that are constantly evolving. And is how can we get these different postures or these different emotions or moments through digital fashion that is mostly contactless. So for me, the way that I integrate storytelling into my practice is first by the idea that the audience will interact with my project in real time. So I love to use chain physics. I love to use cloth simulation. I love to use pieces that grow over time with usability and with interaction. I really love the audience to feel that their body, their energy is feeding that machine, right? Or that their posture is sort of bringing that piece to life in a different way as well. And for me, fashion is so visceral in the sense that it's something that hugs your body. It's something that allows you to connect with other people through symbolisms. So for me, it's really important to find these contemporary digital symbolisms in digital fashion as well. I love to play with intersectional digitization, but above it all, with the concept that I'm still developing in my mind, but I like to refer to as cyber Kimbandism, which is basically merging these technologies with Bantu spirituality and really just seeing how different mediums of communication, different mediums of interaction can also allow us to create different mythologies and different gods, let's say. And for me, that's the power of being a pioneer in this space, is that sort of the first people to get to tell a story are the ones that really stick in your head. So for me, the most important part of adding storytelling to my work is to add my ancestry, to add my genetical and lived history as well.
Wow. Yeah, your stories are incredible. Go for it.
Yeah, it might go a bit off topic from the fashion itself, but when it comes to storytelling, what we're doing, for instance, and I want to connect to what you said about the emotions, right? That what you're designing is creating emotions. Our way of doing storytelling is actually creating art collections, right? It's curating for spaces that can be public spaces, that can be a lobby of an hotel, can be a big display or museums, right? So, and we're trying to have a new approach to that, which is actually trying to understand scientifically what are the emotions that the art or what we're seeing is creating. So we're doing some neuroscientific research by literally analyzing the brainwave of the viewers that are looking at the art, right? And we're seeing like how the colors, the shapes, the objects, how the things move, right? So the wall rotation affect the human brain. And we're actually seeing in these first discovery studies we're doing how well the creators, right? So I'm sitting next to artists, and how well like creators actually manage most of the time to convey their emotions and also thinking of what kind of emotions they want to create. And now like this is scientifically actually matching, like
So you will be able to pinpoint if she wants to evoke a emotion of joy and then sudden sadness. You can monitor that through her journey.
yes, you can monitor like you can measure like the state of emotional engagement to something and the pleasure, if it's positive or negative. So then according to this quadrant, you can actually like position and you find like actually 36 different emotions. So we can label art based on emotions. So yes, like I can take an artwork and we can see what is the expected emotional response that artwork is going to have. And I was just reflecting that in their storytelling and in their creation process, right? They want to convey emotions, and we're interviewing artists and then seeing the scientific results. How this is usually matching, right? Some people want to convey melancholy, sense of melancholy, or sadness, or joy, or comfort, or excitement, creativity. So this we can kind of match and tune. And this is the storytelling part. It goes back to designing sensorial experience at the end of the day, right? Because I think also fashion is a sensorial experience, especially digital, when you're not wearing it directly, right? So you're looking at something, and how the way it makes you feel is even stronger because you're reflected in what that person is wearing, right? You can imagine you're gonna wear that. So there's even an additional component that is not just art, is you can wear that, so you can have that. It's interesting.
So you'll be able to actually say, I know, and I have the data that this outfit makes me feel this way.
I have the data that a certain outfit, by looking at it, makes people feel a certain way. I don't have the data of what people feel while wearing it.
Okay, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And that's incredible. That's a great step. It's a whole different step of storytelling. And Gianluca, while you have the mic, I did want to address to you in the whole panel is what you're creating is very different. It's something we haven't seen before. So what makes, who says it's art? When is it considered art? And does it need to expand the connection between consumer and garment? Like, take it away.
Yeah, like that's usually like, so we're working right now with 42 international artists. And I also had the pleasure to work with Leo like last year for one exhibition. And that is when the question comes, like when I can run a digital art exhibition and when I can exhibit like fashion, right? So when digital fashion becomes an art piece that I can bring to an exhibition, or I can propose to a client to exhibit in his house, in his living room, and so on. My probably basic answer is that if it limits to a render of a product, of a render of an idea or concept, like like the design of something, of a product, if it stays as a product, then it's not art. But if it conveys emotions, right? If there's like, as you were saying, a storytelling behind, as we answered the first question, it's probably like when it feels like, okay, that's art. It can be like a dress that
We might need our IP lawyer back on stage this one.
Yeah. So that's, I guess that's my answer. But I'm curious to hear from you guys.
I would say that for me, the difference between what makes digital fashion art, like sort of that direction, I think that is the same thing of what makes anything art. There's this quote that says that a lot of fashion is art, but a lot of fashion designers are not artists. So I don't think it has to do necessarily with the tool that you're using or the space that you are occupying. I think it has to do with the intention. Of course, that every time you design something, that something that you are designing becomes sort of the vehicle, right? The mode of transportation of the message that you want to deliver. And is the way that you use that vehicle to convey that message. I would say that in my personal experience, I recently came out of the closet as a digital artist/artist. I never really saw myself as an artist. I always seen art as a quite elitist, sort of abstract industry or field of money laundering, basically. I'm being very honest. So to see myself as a maker in this space is to remove all the previous connotations that I associate with art and to bring the ones that make it viable for me, which once again comes from the idea of preserving emotions or preserving traditions or expanding those traditions, questioning those traditions, or even playing with your senses. Like in the area that we are working in, that is digital fashion, is a very exciting area for me because of course that I love wearing fashion. I consider a lot of fashion art. But when it comes to wearing a filter, for example, the way that it's going to make my pores sort of dilate, the way that it's, if a spider is climbing up my body, being it digital or physical, I'm going to try and remove it. So it does not mean that a real spider is an art piece, but maybe the sensation that I want to project, that fear in itself, is an expression of art for me. So that's the best way that I could describe it. But I'm really curious to hear Glitch of Mind's idea of what makes like a product become art.
Well, for me, I think I have the same thing as you. Like I had it at the beginning like that as well. I didn't call myself an artist. It took me a while to kind of embrace that term because I wasn't connected with what I was creating at the beginning. And I was like kind of lost in that sense, like, oh no, but I want to be an artist. So my art has to be difficult to understand to make it art. So why should I so I fought a lot that struggle of like trying to identify what I wanted to say until one moment I went through a tiny little depression, tiny. And then from there, I discovered what I wanted to say through my work, which was actually my story, but not to make it so obvious that you know that it's my story. So it's more like using symbolisms about my self-exploration, my own experiences, and how do I apply them to these little fantasy worlds and where I am. So that's why the name Glitch of Mind that I go to in the Web3 space is that. It's like, because for me, each of my work is just a little glimpse into a fantasy realm where I am free to just express whatever I want. So for me, it's like you said, is the moment that I connected with what I want to say through the work that I create, that's when I was like, okay, I'm an artist. So, you know, for me was that. So like, for me, it's like when you find something that you want to tell to the world, what you want to share something about yourself, about the people around you, just a story, like something that it will resonate whether you are explicit or not, but that somebody look at it and you can make them, for me, like art for me is like, has to make you imagine things, fantasize, transport you into another realm. So for me, digital fashion took me also a while to call myself a digital fashion designer, because I also like, yeah, I don't have the studies of this. But then I started just to create. A good friend of mine told me, go into this space because I think you are really good at it. And I'm like, okay. So I just like went because I was already doing it. So now the focus became really very much trying to connect that story with the clothing that I created, how I want to create it. And like, I want to create fantasies. I want to create things that makes you or whoever like my work and look at my work travel somewhere or imagine the story of the character or like, you know, whatever. But it's like, I need to connect with what I create and then I share it. And that's a struggle sometimes, of course, because sometimes you don't know what you're creating. Once you open that door into like that realm of what stories that you want to tell, it's just like, let it pour out without over-analyzing it too much as well.
And then I guess I'll expand on that because both Damara and Leonel, you guys work with garments. How can digital fashion expand the connection between consumer and the garment? Beyond storytelling, but combining that full circle.
Okay, I know that I suggested that question, but even for me right now, I'm like, what the fuck did I ask? I think that in a very abstract way, I think that new mediums will always create new formats of connection. Like that's the one thing that a medium will do. It will allow you to connect with an industry or to connect to a garment, an object, a piece of art in different layers and in different ways. And I think that for me, specifically augmented reality really, really allows to create that sort of narrative of emotional or physical connection between the user and the garment. Just to give a very simple example, I worked in this piece with Snapchat that was titled Exodus. And Exodus was this augmented reality dress that uses, okay, it's something that collects the storage data, basically. It stores the data. So every time the user turns on the filter recognizes, okay, this profile opened me twice, so I grow 2 times and I change my color twice. So every time the user goes back to their augmented reality experience, it just grows and grows and grows and grows over time. So it's an infinite connection. It's almost like a Tamagotchi. And the more you interact with it, it will change with your presence. It will change with your interaction as well. And for me, these are the ways and the little gamification / science fiction ways that we can use to convey and expand the connection between object and the individual that is using that object. I'm an avid collector of vintage and antiquities, and my mother's bridal dress and the bubu that belonged to my grandmother and a little bit of African textile that my mother kept from her grandmother. So for me, the idea of connecting to an object is more than the moment of consuming. It's more than the moment of showing it off online, for example. But it's really the deep connection that I will have that object. Like what will make, I think for me, the question would be what will make someone leave their digital fashion collection to their grandchildren when they die, for example? What will someone feel like when they inherit an NFT or when they inherit a digital fashion design? And for me, that's sort of where that connection starts. It's quite abstract.
No, I love it. It's definitely thinking long term and giving a lot of value to the products we do create. Well, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of history in everything you do collect. You can tell exactly by your outfit. And as creators, I mean, what is the demand from businesses and how digital fashion can satisfy that demand? Anyone want to try this?
Okay, so I will just, for example, in my case, I am a little bit of a gamer slash, like I love metaverse spaces, anything that make me kind of travel somewhere, like to the imagination of the person. So for me, one of the things that, for example, digital fashion does is like it opens that door for you to just like literally explore whatever you want to wear, however you want to wear it, when you want to wear it. And one of the more important things that I feel that, and I have seen brands kind of like going into that, I don't follow too much trends and information like that, but I love to see like what people are doing with digital fashion now. And many of the brands, what they are trying to switch on is exactly that about the, how do you connect with the consumer in sense of like, how do you create a story that the person who is wearing that clothing connects with? How does that make them feel, even if it's digitally first, right? And then from there, create a sort of like I have seen it now, like a sort of demand. So in that way, it's less waste, you know, because right now the whole fashion industry, it's a huge problem in the sense of pollution and what it's doing to the planet. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to call out no brand, like nothing. It's just like, it's a reality, right? And we have to find ways to confront it and find ways to try to, how do we try to switch a little bit the narrative around that? And I feel like right now what they're trying to do, and many I have seen it, with, especially with all the artists that I have seen that work a lot in fashion, is they want to find a way to connect, like you can try the clothing, right? And if you want it, like you can literally now have the right measurements instead of like putting a bunch of stuff in a store that probably nobody will buy and it will just go to waste. So that's for me like the priority when it comes with the benefits of digital fashion and the storytelling, of course, but in terms of like how the production, how is it going to work now and how the new models are working towards. So that's my 2 cents.
I would like.
Uh,
Oh, so no, go ahead. Sorry. I would just like to add something. I heard this somewhere, this quote that says that memories live longer than objects. So it's true, memories live longer than objects. I have objects that I missed and that I lost years ago, and I still have that connection with those objects. But secondly, objects also tend to outlive people. So if our memories last longer than objects, but these objects will stay here for longer than we do, how can we use those objects as vehicles of those same memories in a way? And for me, that's how digital fashion can really expand the limit of, let's say, analog fashion.
Wow. I mean,
Dive in there, Gianluca.
a lot. Oof. um, I guess I mean nothing to add, but maybe one question, like when are we gonna be ready to have like clothes that, we are gonna change the design, right? And are gonna display something. Because that's to me the main question about digital fashion is like, how do we make it fashion? Like, how do we then like, right? Because it's so far something, as you said, that we can see and feel on ourselves, but how can we end up wearing it? So in my exploration with Muro, we actually started Muro by wanting to make it for consumers very easy to access digital art. So in your smart TV or through frames, and we started looking into different consumption medium, right? We started looking at projector, or then we started looking into these holograms. In the imagine in your kitchen, you can have like this sculpture that creates this 3D hologram, right? And every year we're going to have more and more interesting tools. So that's where I see like we're gonna, in terms of consumer, we're gonna like integrating digital more and more in a smart way. I feel we're gonna have the closet, right? You're gonna open your closet and there's the smart mirror, and this, according to your mood, is automatically suggesting an outfit, right? So I guess that the question is like when we're gonna get to a point where technology is ready enough to make digital fashion something we can use on ourselves.
I think the technology is already there. I think that the appetite is a little bit of a different story. We can be metaverse utopians, but most people are not in this space and they don't really understand. I think that for that to be feasible, there needs to be a middle term, right? Like an intersection of it. For example, I love to imagine a physical fashion brand that updates with different filters every day. And then I can download a glitch of mine design and then I have it on the t-shirt. And then I download hers and then I have it on my t-shirt. So I think that eventually we'll get to this place where physical objects can become sort of the containers of hundreds or thousands of different digital auras or experiences, especially going back to what Glitch of Mine was talking about when it comes to sustainability. 30 to 40% of all clothes that are produced end up in landfills in developing countries. So that's, for me, that's the only way that I can imagine it, but I'm sure that,
No, just gonna say something quick and just piggyback on what you are saying. I think it's about the appetite, right? Right now, I think the model that is in place, we all got accustomed to it. The good thing about what I have seen about what digital fashion and immersive experience is doing is creating on the new generation coming up. Not saying that we are old or anything, but it's like right now the ones that are adopting this new world to connect in different ways than how I did it when I was growing up, for example, is these new kids right now with all the Fortnite and the skins. And right now they are not buying fashion, they are buying digital fashion for their characters in order to express themselves with their friends in a digital space, right? And I know like sometimes we go into the conundrum of like, yeah, if this is like taking them away from living life, but I think like those kids are living life the way that they want, and especially
Fine.
yeah, they're fine. Like I have seen like they play a little bit and then they go out and connect with nature and everything. But I think it's like the model, you see it is switching. It's slowly. It's not gonna be a complete switch in our generation, but it's getting there slowly now in a place where the appetite for self-expression right now is becoming more important than actually what brand are you wearing, like what because right now, like it's you see a shift, especially like on the younger people, and all of us. But whatever, we are all here because we are interested in this. So, in the end of the day, we have the curiosity to understand how these things can be applied, how it can be modified, how we can do something that connects us all in a way. Because in the end of the day, those kids, they are now like, in the digital space, they are finding a way to connect with people that they didn't have before. And they're still connecting with people. They're talking with their friends, telling them, hey, look what I found here. This new store is fabulous. Like, look at this clothing. Like, it's just fantastic. And I love the way that, these things keep evolving and creating new spaces, new expertise where you just explore and just go for it without any fear. Like I had to get rid of my fear of calling myself a digital designer, fashion designer, because I'm like, whatever, I just want to explore and tell stories, and you can try to tag me however you want, depending on what you see in my work. It's not my business. My business is to create and to connect. So yeah.
I think that's great. And for sure, it's bringing a new sense of collaboration and community that we just didn't have access to even like 3-4 years ago. You guys could collaborate as artists with people all over the world instantly with suggestions of all different age groups. It's opening so many doors. However, we are a little bit over time. So I would love if anyone from the audience has any questions for any of these geniuses up here. Please raise your hands. Going once. Going twice. Is there anything you guys would like to add at the end? If you want to share anything you're working on?
Yeah, so we have a creative studio in Lisbon. We are 3 different partners, neuroscientists, an AI expert, and me as Muro. And we're going to run a 3 days digital art exhibition. It's 10 minutes walk, so I will be happy to share. And we're going to have a lot of creatives. There's actually a lot of other brands like Crowdmuse and other digital fashion brands. So it's a creative space to come and play around. So feel free to join. It's opening today at 5.
Amazing. Let's all head over there after. Thank you so much, guys. That was an amazing talk.